The Porsche sat motionless in the pouring rain, its sleek silver body reflecting flashes of lightning as if the storm itself had chosen it as a target. People gathered under umbrellas near the luxury hotel entrance, whispering and watching as one of the most successful CEOs in the city stood beside her stalled sports car with visible frustration. Cameras from a nearby business event captured every moment, and social media influencers eagerly filmed the scene. It looked like an embarrassing disaster for a woman who seemed to have everything. But what happened next would change two lives forever. Before we begin, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the idea that one act of compassion can change a person's destiny, please take a moment to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share this story with someone who needs inspiration today, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories like this one. Emma Sinclair was known throughout the city as the fearless CEO who had built a billion-dollar technology company from scratch. Magazines called her a genius. Television hosts called her unstoppable. Investors called her a miracle. Yet beneath the designer clothes and confident smile was a woman carrying years of loneliness. That rainy evening, she had just finished speaking at a major business conference when her beloved Porsche suddenly died in front of hundreds of people. The luxury car refused to start. The engine sputtered once, then fell silent. Several expensive mechanics attending the event examined the vehicle. They checked the battery, scanned the computer system, and discussed complicated possibilities. Yet none of them could identify the problem. As the crowd grew larger, Emma attempted to laugh off the embarrassment. Standing near the edge of the parking area was a man who looked completely out of place among the wealthy guests. His jacket was old. His shoes showed signs of years of wear. Beside him stood a little girl holding his hand tightly. His name was Daniel Carter. Daniel was a single father struggling to raise his 8-year-old daughter Lily after losing his wife 3 years earlier to a sudden illness. Life had not been kind to him. Medical bills had destroyed his savings. The small repair shop he once owned had gone bankrupt. Now he worked wherever he could find employment, repairing vehicles for local customers and doing odd jobs to keep food on the table. That night, Daniel had been delivering equipment to the hotel when he noticed the crowd around the Porsche. Most people ignored him. The wealthy guests barely looked in his direction. But Daniel noticed something everyone else had missed. The sound. When the engine had attempted to start, he heard a tiny metallic click. Years of experience had trained his ears to recognize problems others overlooked. He quietly stepped forward. Some guests immediately laughed. Others rolled their eyes. The sight of a poor mechanic approaching a luxury Porsche seemed almost ridiculous to them. Emma noticed him and smiled politely. Trying to lighten the mood, she jokingly said that if he managed to fix her Porsche, she might just marry him. The crowd burst into laughter. For most people, it was a harmless joke. But Daniel didn't laugh. He simply nodded and walked toward the vehicle. Then he opened the hood. Everything changed. His expression became serious. The laughter slowly faded. Rain dripped from his hair as he carefully examined the engine compartment. His hands moved with confidence and precision. He wasn't guessing. He knew exactly what he was looking for. Several professional mechanics watched with curiosity. Daniel noticed a hidden issue involving a damaged connector and a wiring problem that had escaped the diagnostic systems. It was small enough to remain undetected but serious enough to shut down the vehicle completely. Working carefully, he adjusted the damaged component. Minutes later, he asked for the ignition. The engine roared to life instantly. The crowd fell silent. Even the mechanic stared in disbelief. Emma looked shocked. The impossible had just happened. But what impressed her wasn't the repair. It was what Daniel did next. He closed the hood, stepped back, and began walking away. No celebration. No demand for money. No attempt to impress anyone. He simply returned to his daughter. That single act stayed in Emma's mind long after the crowd disappeared. For the first time in years, she had met someone who didn't seem interested in her wealth, influence, or status. A week later, she couldn't stop thinking about the mechanic in the rain. Curiosity led her to investigate. What she discovered broke her heart. Daniel lived in a tiny rented apartment. His daughter shared a bedroom separated by a curtain because there wasn't enough space. Bills piled on the kitchen table. Some nights he skipped meals so Lily could eat better food. Yet everyone who knew him described the same man. Honest. Hardworking. Kind. A man who helped neighbors despite having almost nothing himself. Emma found herself thinking about him more and more. Eventually, she visited the small garage where he occasionally worked. The place was modest. The tools were old. The roof leaked during storms. Yet Daniel greeted customers with the same respect whether they drove luxury vehicles or broken-down trucks. As weeks passed, Emma found excuses to return. Sometimes it was for vehicle maintenance. Sometimes it was simply to talk. For the first time in years, conversations felt genuine. Daniel didn't care about corporate headlines. He didn't ask about stock prices. He never treated her like a celebrity. Instead, he asked about her happiness. And surprisingly, she struggled to answer. Because despite all her success, she wasn't truly happy. The friendship grew slowly. Meanwhile, Lily became fond of Emma. The little girl had spent years watching her father carry burdens no parent should face alone. She saw something different when Emma was around. For the first time since her mother's death, Daniel smiled more often. Months passed. Then disaster struck. A powerful corporation launched a hostile attack against Emma's company. Investors panicked. Stock values dropped. News channels predicted collapse. Competitors celebrated. Suddenly, the woman who had spent years building an empire found herself fighting to save everything she had created. Stress consumed her life. Sleep disappeared. Fear returned. One evening, overwhelmed and exhausted, Emma drove to Daniel's garage. She found him working alone. Without asking questions, he simply listened. 4 hours. No advice. No judgment. Just understanding. That night reminded Emma of something she had forgotten long ago. Strength doesn't always come from power. Sometimes it comes from having someone willing to stand beside you when everything falls apart. As the corporate battle intensified, Daniel quietly supported her. He encouraged her during setbacks. He reminded her of the values that had built her company. Most importantly, he helped her remember who she was before success defined her identity. Months later, the crisis ended. Against all odds, Emma's company survived. The hostile takeover failed. Employees kept their jobs. The business emerged stronger than before. The media celebrated her victory. Yet when reporters asked who deserved credit, Emma thought about a rain-soaked mechanic who had repaired more than just a Porsche. 1 year after their first meeting, Emma organized a charity event supporting struggling single parents. Hundreds attended. Business leaders, investors, and journalists filled the grand ballroom. Daniel arrived with Lily, expecting nothing unusual. Then Emma stepped onto the stage. The room grew quiet. She began speaking about success. About resilience. About the people who save us when we don't realize we're lost. Then she told the story of a broken Porsche during a storm. The audience laughed softly. Many recognized the famous incident. But her voice became emotional as she continued. She described the mechanic who had walked away after solving the problem. The father who sacrificed everything for his daughter. The man who taught a billionaire CEO the true meaning of humility, loyalty, and love. Tears filled Daniel's eyes. Lily squeezed his hand. Then Emma revealed her final surprise. She had purchased the old garage where Daniel worked. Not as a gift. As an investment. The building would become a modern repair center fully owned by Daniel. His years of struggle would finally end. The crowd erupted into applause. But Emma wasn't finished. She walked down from the stage and stopped in front of him. The room became completely silent. Everyone remembered the joke she had made during that stormy night. The joke about fixing her Porsche. What nobody expected was what came next. Emma admitted that sometimes life begins with a joke and ends with destiny. She explained that Daniel had repaired something far more valuable than an engine. He had repaired her faith in people. He had shown her that character matters more than wealth. That kindness matters more than status. That love often arrives disguised as ordinary moments. Tears streamed down faces throughout the ballroom. Daniel looked overwhelmed. Years of hardship flashed through his mind. The hospital rooms. The unpaid bills. The lonely nights after losing his wife. The fear of failing his daughter. And now this moment. A future he never imagined. Before we reach the ending, if this story has touched your heart, please take a moment to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who believes that good people eventually receive the blessings they deserve. Special request, comment below with the words, "Kindness always wins," if you believe that even small acts of goodness can change someone's entire life. The most beautiful part of the story wasn't the garage. It wasn't the success. It wasn't even the love that eventually grew between them. The most beautiful part was Lily. For years she had watched her father fight impossible battles alone. Now she watched him smile again. She watched hope return to their home. She watched happiness replace survival. And in that moment, every sacrifice Daniel had ever made became worthwhile. The storm that had once stranded a Porsche had unknowingly guided 3 hearts toward a new beginning. Sometimes miracles don't arrive with flashing lights or dramatic announcements. Sometimes they arrive quietly. A broken engine. A rainy night. A struggling father. A lonely CEO. And one simple act of kindness that changes everything. Because in the end, people rarely remember how much money someone earned, what car they drove, or how famous they became. They remember the hearts that helped them when life was hardest. They remember the people who stayed when everyone else left. And they remember the moments when kindness transformed an ordinary day into the beginning of something extraordinary. That is why this story continues to inspire everyone who hears it. Because it reminds us that no matter how difficult life becomes, goodness still matters. Kindness still matters. Love still matters. And sometimes, the person capable of changing your entire future is standing right in front of you, waiting for a chance to open the hood and reveal a miracle nobody else can see.